Yes, for their 30th birthday, Granada gave their viewers the gift of sound and vision, and a little nostalgia. Unfortunately, it was only a temporary gift, like a book token or something. I don't know, I'm not very good at metaphors. But the upshot is, by 1987, we were back to the northern austerity. Albeit upgraded with a gradient background, some blinged out lettering, and either a slight perspective tilt for the logo, or an optical illusion. I'm not 100% certain. The bling aspect was toned down a little in 1988, unless that's supposed to be platinum instead of silver, in which case it was toned up if anything, and apart from the odd seasonal variation, this one denotes spring, branding wise the region was pretty much the same as it ever was. And then 1989 came along, and everything changed. That was never actually adopted. Psych. Granada were another of the companies felt that they had too distinct and powerful an identity to just give it up to ITV. It didn't help that ITV completely messed up the logo in their version of the generic ident. I mean, even at the age of 5, doodling the Granada logo instead of doing sums, I understood that that was supposed to be an arrow coming out, not an accent or a bloody pith helmet or whatever. But, and this is entirely speculation and probably complete bollocks, it did throw into sharp relief the fact that their idents were boring, and perhaps recognising this, Granada seemed to crack up altogether, going on an orgy of branding that would last throughout the 90s.
And now at Granada, exciting new prospects for Julia Mackenzie and Anton Rogers in French Fields.
Welcome to the new school. 1989 brought Granada's first animated ident since God knows when. It's actually still relatively shy with the scudding clouds and translucent G, but compared to the static captions of old, this was practically Shirley Bassey levels of brass. But if the new idents were demure, they were more than made up for by the special ident for explicitly local programming, with its garish colours and discordant music. It was vaguely reminiscent of a specialist release on ZTT Records. There was also a sporadically used attempt at compromise with ITV's generic look, and a bizarre Christmas ident in which the station's logo was barely visible behind a parade of paper children. But in the end these would only last less than 18 months, before being replaced with one of the most enduring channel identities of the 90s, the Stripe. It may not be particularly exciting, but it's a design classic. It's clear, it's crisp, it's focused, and unlike the 1989 translucent G idents, it's confident. The previous batch seemed just a tad insecure, as though Granada were showing off, trying to impress the popular jocks, jumping up and down and yelling, "Look at me, look at me, look what I can do! Look at me, look at me, look at me!" By 1990, however, Granada had remembered that they were one of the popular jocks. The Broadcasting Act, of course, had become law, changing the entire face of independent television in the country for the worse, and with it a new franchise round, the third and final. What better time for Granada to demonstrate A, their apparently inherent classiness, and B, their supreme confidence in getting the franchise again. Why else would you introduce a whole new cohesive look for your company if you were sincerely entertaining the notion that it wouldn't last another 2 years? Over the years, Stripesy would be refined and versioned to within an inch of its life. Not that it had a life. It's a picture of a blue perpendicular oblong enclosing a stylized G. What's wrong with you? The point is, over the next few years it was version city for the Granada logo, whether it be heavily backlit for those chilly winter evenings, ensconced within a snow globe for Christmas 1992, or on fire to show support for the now long forgotten 1996 Manchester Olympic bid. Throughout, the famous G symbol, which was now enough to say Granada on its own, was increasingly treated as a fetish object, as in this 1992 promotional sting. The curiously self-effacing slogan, "Television worth watching," had adorned their publicity materials for years by the time this sting came out. But by 1994, with Granada already on the shopping spree that would see it and Carlton effectively the only games in town by the end of the decade, they needed a new, grander image to support their new, megalomaniacal outlook. And what better for a company intent on taking over the entire country than a flag? Designed, produced, directed, written, and probably edited, scored and performed by Peter Phillips, suddenly Granada were leading the cultural revolution. No longer making television worth gawping lithely at while you scoop handfuls of mushy peas into your chops, they were now setting the standard. The standard for what I'll leave to your rapier wit, but this newly bullish image was reflected in Granada's actions at the time. Technically, the flags weren't actually idents, they were promotions, but they were used as idents on occasion, usually before the news. When new idents did come along in 1995, it was Peter Phillips at the helm again. At first glance, it looks like the usual computer-generated Channel 4 frippery, but then you remember this is 1995, and the logo looks just a tiny tad more detailed than you would have expected from that year. Sure enough, computers were not involved at all, except on the backdrop. What you're actually looking at is a gigantic Perspex G, shot several times with motion control and composited together to create an ident good enough to eat. A later variation used slit scan and coloured lighting, but was still shot entirely on camera. We don't need no bloody computers up here. The net result was a slightly more powerful and dynamic image, which was just as well, because Granada's plot for world domination was well and truly on track. As well as hoarding the ITV regions like a fat man in a cake shop, Granada started to turn its attentions towards satellite, but more specifically the freshly minted technology of digital